Hey friends, it's Jeannie. Today I am creating a card for the Not Too Shabby design team, and I will be using this Happy Together stamp set that features two hands holding along with a couple of accessories that you can decorate the hands if you wish. For today's card, I am focusing mainly on my no-line coloring. I'm going to go ahead and start out with the coloring by using my darkest color, laying down all the shadowed areas on the hand. For my no-line coloring, my preference is to use Ink on 3's Fadeout Ink, which is a no-line coloring ink. It is formalized, so when you put colors on top of it, it'll absorb the color. It really gives to the effect of the no-line coloring. Also, if you are new to no-line coloring, it is definitely something that requires a bit of practice. Learning where to put the shadows and building that color out is one of the things that I have learned over the past year and a half, where I've really focused and spent time doing no line coloring, and now it does come a little bit easier to me. Sometimes there are just images that I definitely cannot do no line coloring for, because you have to be pretty careful with where you put shadows and how you can build it out without losing the image. When you stamp with black outlines or black ink, it kind of protects you because the black outline will form the shape that you need to keep your colors within. For my no-line coloring, I tend to go in with my darkest color first. I'll mark out all the little shadow areas anytime there's some overlap or anywhere that would create a shadow, and where I want to find as area, then I will put the darkest color. Then I will move to my mid-tone color, and in this case it is the E11, and kind of build that out. And then I will go in with my lightest color and color up the rest of the area. And for no line coloring, I will go in a couple of times to just build up that color, because I want to be more generous with my lightest color, because you can always build up the color to make it darker. And that's what I do. So sometimes I'll just have to go in a few more times to get the blend that I want. The general idea is that you just really need to practice your no-line coloring and get used to being able to place down all the areas of the shadows and then build out that color. So again, we're starting on the second hand, and again, I am going in with my darkest colors. I wanted their skin tones to be a little bit different from each other so you can distinguish the two hands, and I just went in with some E colors, which really work. And you'll notice later that my Copic marker just blobbed on my card panel, and I already spent so much time coloring that left hand that I did not want to recolor this, and I was pretty frustrated, but there are easy ways to cover this up and fix it, and you'll see when it happens near the guy's thumb. So yeah, but for the hand itself, I am going in with the darkest color to add everywhere that I want to be distinguished and where there will be shadow. And his hand is a little bit more wrinkly than hers, so there are a little bit more details. So yep, that's where my ink blobbed. And when I do that, when that happens with a Copic marker, that just means that there's a lot of pressure within the ink and it might be overfilled. So if you take off the second cap, it eases the pressure and it wouldn't blob like that. But in this case, it happened on the thumb, and I thought about scrapping it, but I looked at it and I figured that I could fix it with a blender marker, which is the 0. And if I couldn't fix it there, I could just trim everything out, which is what I ended up doing. The idea behind this particular card was that I wanted to create a scene card, and it was actually going to be more elaborate than what I ended up with, but because of my frustration with the Copic marker blobbing, I kind of gave that idea up and reversed course and just went with a very simple card. So hopefully this kind of shows you my process of the no line coloring, where you just build up the color and you're able to achieve a really good effect. I would suggest using an image that has a lot of space and not so many details, so you can get used to being able to put down the shadows and blending out the color. but it does take practice. It's not something that comes easy, and it is really fun once you get used to it. So here I went in with that zero marker trying to push out the color, and although it could have worked and I could have kept adding the colorless blender onto my card panel and really push that brown out, I decided that this image was simple enough for me to cut out. So I decided just to go ahead and fussy cut this, and it looks perfectly fine. The thumb is a little bit darker, but I don't think anyone really will notice it once you put it into a card. Because I had the idea of having it to be a scene card, I wanted them actually to be like walking on a city street, but because of the mess up, I decided just to go simple, and I decided that they were just going to be walking on a grassy field on a sunny day. So I took another piece of A2 cardstock and I am inking it up with some greens just at the bottom, and that will be the grass. And I kept going in with the colors because I thought I wanted it to be a little bit darker and bolder. I just inked it up until I got to a point where I was happy. One of my first loves with card making was just ink blending, because I really love the idea of being able to use ink to fill up a background and not have to use my Copic markers to do so. For the sky itself, I am going in with a blender brush, and you can use any brush you have, but I'm going in pretty light. I have figured out this trick for skies where if you just add blue to certain areas of it and leave the remaining area white, it looks like clouds, and there's nothing really special about it. I just leave a few portions white. It just has that effect of a very sunny blue sky day with a few clouds in the sky. So I actually thought back to when I finished this card and I've took photos of it. I thought that I should have gone in a little bit darker with the blue skies, but it is what it is. I'm not going to go in and change it now, but I thought that it would be more dramatic if I added more blue. With my inked background, I thought I needed a bit of texture, and so I'm just going in with very similar Copic markers to fill up that grassy area just to give it a little bit more texture. Sometimes I think that inked backgrounds are gorgeous, but I really like the interest that either water splatter or additional textures give to a particular card. So that's why I went in with my Copic markers just to draw blades of grass. I'm just flicking upwards and it kind of disappears into the sky. So I really liked how that turned out, and I thought that just gave it something a little bit more interesting because it's just such a simple card. So once I finished with my background, I just added glue on those hands and glued it to my card front, and I'll trim off the excess hands. And I thought that because this card was so simple, I needed to trim down my panel a little bit just so there's more focus on the hands themselves. So once I add the sentiment, I'll actually trim down card panel down a little bit more. I tend to trim down my card panels in general because I like a border around my cards, and that's what I did here. For the sentiment itself, I pulled it out from two different sentiments, so I'm stamping out the first part of the sentiment first, and I use the happy and the happy anniversary as a standalone word. You can cut your stamp, but I just can't do stamp surgery, and I will just go ahead and mask off an area of a word that I don't want stamped. So I just wanted to have this say, "You make me so happy." After I stamped it, I was like, oh, it's a little off, but you know what? I don't think anyone's going to notice. Most of the times, you don't really notice the little details that you think other people do. And I think this card turned out perfect. I trimmed everything down, and I decided to trim down a piece of red cardstock to match her nail color, and then I was going to mat it on black just to tie in the sentiment color. This card ended up being matted twice, and I thought that it looked really nice with the red and black frame. So yeah, that's it for today's card. I know that this isn't everyone's cup of tea, and no line coloring isn't everyone's favorite thing to do, but I thought I would take you through the process of creating a no line colored card. So thanks for joining me today, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.